Heinze Felfe was an SS officer during Hitler's regime, and after World War II, he became a KGB agent, sneaking into West German intelligence for 10 years. He was arrested by the West German authorities in 1961 and tried in 1963, whereupon the broad outlines of his case became public knowledge. Years after his 1969 release to East Germany in exchange for 3 West German spies, Felfe also wrote memoirs, and in the 1980s, CIA officers involved with the case granted interviews to author Mary Ellen Reese. A CIA damage assessment of the Felfe case was completed in 1963, and a 1969 study of Felfe as an example of a successful KGB penetration agent. These files represent the first release of official documents concerning the Felfe case, 45 years after his arrest. They show in more detail than ever before how Soviet and Western intelligence alike used former Nazi SS officers during the Cold War years. Heinze Felfe was born on June 15, 1918, in Dresden, Germany. On May 1, 1936, at age 17, he joined the SS and was assigned to the Leibstandarte SS Adolf Hitler as an armed guard. A month later, he was transferred to the SS Security Service, or the SD, and assigned to the Office for Jewish Emigration in Vienna, Austria. After illegally entering Austria, Felfe aided in the arrest of Jewish people and the confiscation of their property. In 1938, he attended an SS economic and administrative school. From 1939, he served as an intelligence officer in France and Belgium. And in 1942, he returned to Germany, where he worked at the SD headquarters in Berlin. After the war, Felfe was tried for war crimes at Nuremberg, but was acquitted and released. However, when the Americans learned that he had been involved in shipping Jews to concentration camps, they detained him until March 1946, when they handed him over to the British. And this is where our story begins. The Soviets had a systematic program of recruiting former SS officers because these men had criminal records that could be used to blackmail them. So it wasn't too long before the Soviets approached Felfe. But Felfe wasn't the type to accept any offer readily. To quote an old Chinese proverb, "A man's heart turns when his own house is on fire." For Felfe, that fire was the city of Dresden. On February 13, 1945, at the height of World War II, the Allies conducted a massive bombing raid on Dresden. It is estimated that between 227 and 250,000 civilians were killed. This remains the most heavily bombed city in human history. When Felfe heard about the raid, he grabbed a motorcycle and raced to the city. According to Felfe, "I drove over piles of corpses. People had literally been baked in their cellars by the bombs. All around me were women who had burnt to death, old folks who hadn't managed to get out, children who had crawled out of the rubble crying and had immediately suffocated on the fresh air. I was stunned. They had destroyed the place I'd come from. My home and my family were gone, and all of a sudden I no longer felt bound by any oath of allegiance or loyalty to anyone. I was just fighting to survive." And survive he did. And then he sold out. On September 3, 1951, Felfe met with 2 Soviet officers, Colonel Pavel Fitin and Captain Vasily Kuznetsov, and became a full-fledged Soviet agent under the codename Paul. But how did Felfe end up working for West German intelligence? You see, after the war, Britain realized that a lot of the German bureaucracy was tainted with Nazism. And so, to cleanse the system, they set up a screening process. Now, this process was applied to everyone but high-ranking officials. It included a background check along with an interview. If approved, the person would receive a Mark S for Sicherung geprüft, which means security checked in German. In 1951, Felfe submitted the necessary documents and underwent an interview. He claimed that he hated Hitler and the Nazis and said that he had already applied to the French authorities for permission to emigrate to South America. He also gave a detailed account of how he had saved a Jewish girl named Rachel from deportation to a concentration camp. This, of course, was a lie, and the interviewers fell for it. Felfe received his Mark S stamp and began working for the Gehlen organization, the precursor to West Germany's Foreign Intelligence Service. Just 4 years later, in 1955, Felfe headed the counterintelligence department responsible for rooting out Soviet spies. Ironically, he was a Soviet spy. But like all good spy stories, the twist remained hidden for many years. In 1953, there were reports that Gehlen, the deputy director of the organization, had become embroiled in a scandal after it was discovered that he had an illegal mistress and a homosexual lover. And the Americans knew that this was the result of KGB blackmail. This prompted the Americans to begin investigating other German nationals working for the organization. Felfe's past was scrutinized, but nothing concrete was found. His appointment to the counterintelligence department went ahead as planned. Felfe wasted no time in getting to work. One of his first assignments was to find the mole who had leaked information about Operation Bookstore to the press. As it turned out, Felfe himself was responsible for leaking this information. He repeated this trick several times, deflecting suspicion away from himself while slandering others. In 1956, Felfe invited the head of the BND, Reinhard Gehlen, to a party at his house. During the party, Felfe noticed that someone was tailing Reinhard Gehlen. The next morning, Felfe reported this to his boss, who ordered the man to be followed. It was discovered that the man was an East German citizen who worked as a chauffeur. The case was closed with no further investigation. What Felfe didn't know was that he had just saved his own neck. The man he had spotted was a KGB agent who had orders to assassinate Reinhard Gehlen. Felfe also provided the Soviets with information about the inner workings of the Gehlen organization. He helped them select targets, provided them with passwords, and even tipped them off when the offices were going to be empty. To give you an idea of the impact of his betrayal, here are some examples. Felfe helped the Soviets neutralize the CIA's efforts against Soviet targets in East Germany. Specifically, he targeted CIA operations in Karlshorst, near the Soviet sector of occupied Berlin. There he compromised the Radio Free Europe station and helped East German authorities shut it down. Felfe also thwarted Operation Pastmaster, which aimed to smuggle East Germans into West Berlin via hot air balloons. He sabotaged these efforts by tipping off the East Germans, resulting in the death of one American and multiple arrests. In addition to his direct contributions, Felfe's actions caused widespread psychological damage within West German intelligence. His infiltration of the counterintelligence department created an atmosphere of mistrust and suspicion. Personnel were afraid of being labeled communist sympathizers, which hindered effective operations. Furthermore, Felfe's presence within the organization undermined its credibility and effectiveness against Soviet espionage. His ability to move freely within the department and provide false information to the Soviets made it difficult for West German intelligence to detect and stop enemy spies. Felfe's betrayal had far-reaching consequences, affecting not only West German intelligence but also other foreign services operating in the region. By providing the Soviets with valuable information and sabotaging operations, he created a climate of fear and uncertainty. This made it challenging for intelligence agencies to carry out their missions and protected Soviet interests in East Germany. For the CIA, Felfe's activities resulted in compromised operations and the exposure of agents. His ability to provide the Soviets with information about CIA activities, personnel, and methods directly threatened their intelligence-gathering efforts. Additionally, Felfe's false reports and misinformation created confusion and misdirection, leading the CIA to waste resources on fruitless endeavors. The extent of Felfe's betrayal was not fully uncovered until after his arrest, revealing the depth of damage he had inflicted on the agency. On June 19, 1961, Heinze Felfe was arrested at Frankfurt Airport as he prepared to board a plane to Moscow. Although he had used forged documents under the alias Heinz Rhein, his true identity was known. Felfe's arrest sent shockwaves through the intelligence community. The realization that such a crucial position had been infiltrated by a Soviet agent was a sobering revelation. The story of Heinze Felfe is a compelling and chilling tale of espionage, betrayal, and the complexities of the Cold War era. Let me know what you think about the case in the comments section. Until the next time, please do not forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel.